Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging. Apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, friends and society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me. It is our weekend edition, but of course this is the final day of Unchanging Truth in Uncertain Times, Truth Team 2020. And so I certainly do encourage you to not only find some of the articles we posted on the website, but also as you go to the website, that's a way in which you can give to this ministry. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. But we, of course, have in studio with us Penna Dexter. Kelly Shackelford just flying in right now. He'll be with us a little bit later. Brad Fisk has been with us all week. He'll be in the next hour, and then we'll even be talking with Foster Freeze, so one of the articles we've posted about America's uncivil war. So there are lots of things to cover, but Penna Dexter, has been a great week of fundraising, and we've had a chance to talk to just all sorts of great guests here on Point of View.
You know, sometimes, Kerby, when we have the weeks where we invite people to be a partner with Point of View and to just not only financially help us, but also be a prayer partner and just be part of the team, the truth team. And you use the term this time, unchanging truth in uncertain times. Wow, how descriptive of what we're dealing with. I mean, we always see the left trying to change truth and the meaning of things, but I don't think we've ever seen anything like what we're seeing today. We have to battle for the meaning of words and the meaning of just things that are core to our beliefs. We have to battle for really our Constitution.
Yes.
It was Constitution Day this week. And so, you know, we are at a time right now where I think the biggest question for our country is, are we going to continue to live with the constitutional principles that we have? Or it's not just fixing things that are wrong in the country anymore. The left wants the whole thing overthrown. And so I think that's kind of one of the two directions we're going to be going. And there's so much that the media doesn't cover. It makes Point of View all the more important.
You know, one of the themes that has run through this is, of course, we're in the midst of an election. One of our articles is election wars. And also a little bit later when we talk with Foster Freeze, he's talking about the fact that it's really worldviews on the ballot. I think pro-life's on the ballot, Constitution's on the ballot, and many other things. But the other is just the culture broadly, because we've also been talking about Netflix and cuties, and we've been talking about some of the images and impact that this is having on our culture. So we recognize that, of course, it's in an election year, but it also is a time in which we're looking at the broader culture, and whether you believe in really making sure we get the right people in office, which we do, or that you believe that we have to maybe go upstream, because in some respects politics is downstream from culture. That's what Point of View is all about, and so that's one of the reasons why we have that theme, Unchanging Truth in Uncertain Times. And in this hour, I'm hoping that some of you might call. I know you've been waiting to the last day. I know my listeners well enough to know there's a lot of procrastinators out there. And if you give us a call at 800-347-5151, just saw a few more people coming in that are actually ready to answer those phones, or you can go to pointofview.net. As we said before, just for a gift of as little as $1 a day, $30 a month, we send you the Outlook magazine, this flash drive, which Penna, we talked about before. Now we've added all sorts of new material, lots of it by you, by the way, on education. We have material there on evangelism. We have added a new interviews with some of these individuals, and so
it's amazing, all in that little, it looks like a
140 different things. Some of those are articles, some of those are viewpoint commentaries, some of them are full interviews. It all fits right in there if it's any kind of one. So, you know, you're son, he knows all about the different kinds of connectors. I don't. I just know that it'll connect to any kind of computer.
It works.
And it has a carabiner, so you can even stick it on your kid's backpack or something like that. And so that's just one of the many benefits that we provide to you. But I thought, just as we are getting into the conversation today, you sent me an email yesterday, and it was really good. Minneapolis asking, where are the police after defunding the police? And Marlon Maddox, you remember Marlon Maddox oftentimes used to have his file, and he said, yesterday we called it, this is the so crazy it is hard to say it with a straight face file. And that's exactly what this is. You just can't believe it, but there are city council members saying, my residents are asking, where are the police? What about
Minneapolis, I mean, it was ground zero for a lot of the problems we're having across the country. And, of course, the big reaction, one of the big reactions, the big demands was to defund the police. Just 2 months after voting to defund the police, this comes out of CNS News, in Minneapolis, just 2 months after voting to defund the police in Minneapolis in the wake of George Floyd's death, the city council is asking why there is an increase in crime and a lack of police response. And residents are asking, where are the police? Council member Jamal Osman said during a city council meeting on police reform. That is the only public safety option they have at the moment. And that's the thing, Kerby, because the defund, some of the people trying to explain the idea of defunding was to say, well, we'll have other entities that are helping people. We'll have social workers, people that do counseling or whatever. Well, that apparently is not in place. And if it is in place, it's not effective when you have someone trying to commit a crime against you, steal from you, hurt you physically, hurt your family. The police is less and less available in Minneapolis for those things, and some people are wondering why.
You know, one of the things I mentioned is Paul Cassell, I think we posted that yesterday, but even if we didn't, it's easy to find, has noticed if you look at the crime statistics, and he takes you through Minneapolis and now even Rochester, but certainly New York and Chicago and Seattle and Portland and those, that from late May on, all of them just have this incredible spike in terms of crime. Now, the bottom line is that in some cases, like Portland, you've had riots and protests. In others, maybe not so much, but in every case, because you've had the defund the police, what has happened is what he calls the Minneapolis effect. You know, Heather McDonald, who we had on the program before, used to talk about the Ferguson effect, and that is sometimes white cops even less likely to engage African Americans for fear that they would be the next person who would be vilified after, of course, the death of Michael Brown. Well, the Minneapolis effect is a slightly different, and that is police have said, I'm just not going to get into any of these confrontations, so there's no more proactive policing. If you're driving down the road in a police car and you see a car with a taillight out, well, it just gives you a justification to pull that individual over and say, do you know your taillight is out? Can I see your license? And that sometimes causes you to realize that maybe somebody's got a handgun, maybe they got some drugs. But now the police are saying, we're just not going to have those confrontations. So we will be there when you call 911, but we're not going to do any proactive policing. And when you don't have a police officer on the beat, you don't have a police car driving down the road, you don't have police officers walking the beat, guess what? Crime goes up.
That's right. You know, when police are stopping cars regularly for various infractions, that's also a deterrent to perhaps, driving while high or having drugs in your car and things like that. So it's the lawlessness that sort of begins to pervade. And, I wonder, there are some people on the far left that really want to decriminalize everything. They don't want crime.
Yes.
They just think that we just will be fine if we just don't punish crime and we don't really define it. And, I don't think that's what most people want, because that's not a very good society to live in.
And when we come back from the break, I will give you some numbers that show that. Rasmussen poll asked individuals who would actually see the riots whether that influenced their decision about who to vote for in the presidency. And the answer was, as you might imagine, yes. And we'll come back and continue our conversation with Penna Dexter. And, of course, we encourage you to give us a call to 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Charles Mizrahi was on my radio program recently to talk about his article, Prosperity and Generosity, the Biblical Roots of Capitalism. Although we talk about the Bible and capitalism, this interview was a bit different because he is Jewish and used Old Testament passages to promote the idea of free enterprise. He wrote his article because he was so disturbed by politicians and young people bemoaning our economic system. Instead, they were calling for more government programs in a march towards socialism. He argued that history has not provided an example of more government programs and bailouts creating wealth for its citizens or resulting in more freedom. He reminds us that often wealth and prosperity were signs of blessing from God. Deuteronomy 8:18 says, "Remember that it is the Lord your God who gives you the power to get wealth, in fulfillment of the covenant that he has made on oath with your fathers, as is still the case." He also reminds us that wealth is not to be hoarded or to be used for self-gratification. God calls for us to be generous with the resources God has placed in our hands. He also points to passages that call for us to be generous to the poor. We read in Deuteronomy 15:11, "There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore I command you to be open-handed towards your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land." You know, God intended that we use our wealth and prosperity to provide for others in need. He describes the guidance that was given to the Israelites in order to help those who couldn't help themselves. That would be the resident alien, the widow, and the orphan. We need to hear more messages like this. He calls for us to work hard, invest, and help our neighbors based on biblical principles. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Racism, go to viewpoints.info/racism. That's viewpoints.info/racism. Point of View Truth Team on Changing Truth in Uncertain Times.
Back once again, and again, it is our weekend edition, but also it's the last day of Truth Team 2020, Unchanging Truth in Uncertain Times. And yesterday, sitting in that chair, well, actually, I should say on Tuesday, we had Candy Noble. Yesterday, by phone, we had Angela Paxton. And while we were talking with Senator Angela Paxton, she says, well, even as we're doing this broadcast right now, the governor is making an announcement about the fact that the state is opening up. And you've seen some of the numbers on that, haven't you?
Yes. The governor announced that now restaurants and also offices and retail stores in Texas, unless they have a high hospitalization rate over a certain point, I think it was 15%, they can open up to 75% capacity. Bars cannot open yet. He explained that they're considered still one of the, I guess, venues where COVID can be passed. But it's really good to see the state opening up. And I always felt that Texas was a good example. I mean, it's a state that actually was surprisingly locked down and strict for the reputation we have, you know, for being cowboys or whatever. So there was a balance there. In a sense, I would have loved things to be more opened up. I've been kind of free and easy ever since May. Before that, I was scared to death. But it's good to see. I think it helps people begin to live a more normal life, to spend money in ways that they were spending it before, to catch up on some purchases, to go out to eat once in a while, and just to get some of these folks that if they had to go much longer, it would be very difficult for some of these businesses. I mean, so many have closed, sadly. But it's just I think it's a positive. I'm glad to hear it.
Well, and again, we will be opening up in the 1 o'clock hour, and we'll have our California listeners who are saying nothing's opened up at all
Right.
over
I know
there.
that. I have family there.
And we will be dealing with that. Of course, we'll talk about some of that with Kelly Shackelford when he joins us in terms of what is happening there in some of the churches. But it's interesting because the governor, on the one hand, has been maybe criticized a little bit because he hasn't opened up the country and even the state in a very significant way. But on the other hand, he's also been focusing his time and attention on another issue, and it's what we just talked about a minute ago, because the Austin City Council decided to actually cut $150 billion out of the police budget for Austin. And so here we see again the defund the police. Well, instead of just sitting back, he decided, I think we need to do something. And so he has now encouraged individuals, and Candy Noble, who was with us on Tuesday, and Angela Paxton, who was with us by phone on Thursday, both have signed a pledge that says when we get together in the legislative session come January, if indeed you have various cities defunding the police, we are going to pass legislation to cap the amount of tax revenue they can get. And if there are communities that have been annexed by those cities, those communities will be free to disconnect and instead be supported by the county sheriff rather than by the police department. Now, Penna, there's always been this argument, well, you can't do that. You're just the governor. First of all, the governor may have locked down the state in ways that some people do wonder if it's constitutional. But this one's pretty constitutional if you think about it, because the states created the cities and created the counties. And so in some respects, the legislature will have that opportunity come January to actually say, if you want to defund the police, there are going to be consequences, just as President Donald Trump has said to other cities, if you don't want to obey the immigration laws and be a sanctuary city, there will be consequences there as well.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, when you think about Austin, I mean, that's the capital of Texas. It's where the large university is. And the city is, in many areas now, just filthy, overrun with homelessness, which often is because of different drug dependencies and mental illness. And so to defund the police, who could at least help keep some kind of order, and there are lots of other things that can be done to deal with those problems. It's counterintuitive, and it's something that's being done in places like Minneapolis and other places where the left is in charge. And unfortunately, Austin, Keep Austin Weird, is run by the left, in Dallas, there's defunding efforts also, and there's some violence even in Dallas. And so, these are the spots around the country where you're seeing this. And I think a governor like Greg Abbott, I've been critical too of some of it, but some of his policies for COVID. But I also have to look at him. He's the governor of the whole state of Texas. And we have people, more and more, we have people across the political spectrum living here and in power. And so you have to deal with that. And I pray for him every day. But whenever he takes a step to open up, I applaud him.
Well, and as you just pointed out a minute ago, Texas is such a big state.
Yes.
You can go to the Northeast, and you've been there, and I have as well, and put all those states in the boundary of Texas. And there's a real difference between somebody who is out there in West Texas, who already has practiced social distancing for decades because the next house is way down the road,
Yeah.
compared to somebody stuck in an apartment complex. So again, that's one of the reasons why he has those disclaimers and says, we're going to open it up if, and then of course the ifs are there, because a lot of people are saying, we want to go to a football game. Again, I'll let you decide if you want to do that. We want to go to a restaurant. We want to have a few more people in here. We want to be able to break and make some things happening. So again, one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is to recognize how much we're trying to educate you about what's happening in the state of Texas. And I thought for just a minute we might listen to what some of our listeners and donors have said about joining with us on the Truth Team.
Point of View Truth Team.
Thank you for your program. I am a team member, and you have opened my eyes to the truth.
You have a wonderful program. I just want to thank you for being there. It's great.
I just wanted to call in and express my gratitude for the awesome work that you guys have done. I've been listening for about 6 months now, and it's just been something I can hardly miss. Thank you for giving me my daily dose of truth with a biblical worldview. I'd just like to encourage anyone listening that's inspired by Point of View to give what they can. I'm a California millennial and Christian, and I now can say I support Point of View.
Thank you. First of all, let me say I listen to y'all's show every day as much as I'm able, and I really appreciate the topics and conversation that y'all bring to the fore.
I listen to y'all's show a great deal, and I really appreciate what you guys do.
Point of View Truth Team.
You might have heard one of those individuals saying, I'm a millennial, and of course listens to the Millennial Roundtable, which will be taking place on Monday. So again, I just thought I'd give you kind of a program note for those of you that like that opportunity. And again, Chelsea will be sitting in this chair. Of course, Penna Dexter sometimes is sitting in this chair. And Penna, if nothing else, speak to that for just a minute, because some of our listeners might say, I guess you are listener supported. I've heard that a few times, but I've never really thought about stepping up and supporting this ministry. And we have a number of new listeners and a number that could be new donors if they actually recognize that we do depend on their financial gifts to bring this program to them.
We do. We don't have any corporate support. We don't have commercials during our breaks, except maybe some stations would have something like that. But we, as a ministry, we are a ministry, nonprofit, 501c3 organization, and we deal with issues that basically to affect the society and the culture, but also especially the Christian. And I think believers are always looking for ways that they can affect the world, not only with their actions, but also through their pocketbook. And I would say that Point of View is a place where you can affect, I mean, when you think about radio and the reach across the country and into homes and into cars, you can have such a great impact and help people understand things that they really need for their lives and to help equip them to make a difference. And really, it's so hard sometimes to explain some of these concepts. People don't know how to, they may know that they are conservative or Christian, that they believe in God, that they believe in moral principles, but sometimes the issues get fuzzy, or the cancel culture sort of appeals to things that you have to be able to understand why you're taking a certain position. And we have, our time is longer than just a soundbite on the news. We've got time to delve into these issues and great experts, and of course you explaining things to the audience. So it's really a worthy place, I would say, to take some of the giving money that God has convicted you to disperse.
Let's, if we can, as we go to a break, just encourage your phone call. You might say, well, I need a little more information. And if you'd like to talk to someone, that number is 800-347-5151. We brought in a number of people, including family members, that are here today to answer the phones. And right now they're looking at their cell phone, and they should be actually talking to you on the phone. So give them a call, 800-347-5151. If you're near a computer, of course, you can simply go to pointofview.net. The banner there, Unchanging Truth in Uncertain Times. And as you click on that, you can find out that you can join at the $1 a day level, which is $30 a month, the $50 a month level. Maybe you can only make one gift. Oh, that would be appreciated as well. But go to the website, pointofview.net, or 1-800-347-5151.
It is absolutely stunning what we see coming out of Washington, D.C. these days. Not just the push to remove or rename historic monuments, but revelations about official corruption in some of the most important and powerful places. Who will hold these people accountable? The major media? I think we know the answer to that. Point of View Radio is here to bring you the truth when no one else will, to give you a sober but hopeful look at what's happening and ideas about how you can make a difference. Today is the final day of our push to get a few more members on our truth team, those who support real news as we head toward the close of what's been for many of us a very difficult year. Don't let fake news go unopposed. Today is the day. We need to hear from you. Join the Truth Team now by visiting pointofview.net/team or call 1-800-347-5151. Unchanging truth in uncertain times. Point of View Radio. Pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Thank you. Point of View will continue after this.
are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Truth Team 2020 on Changing Truth in Uncertain Times. It is Friday, and a little bit later we're going to have Kelly Shackelford in studio. Of course, we have Penna Dexter in studio. We'll also, of course, have Brad Fisk, and so looking forward to all of that. But I thought for just a minute I would see if we could get Warren Kelly in studio. He's the president of Point of View Ministries. You may have received an email he sent out yesterday which basically said, did you see Kerby's previous email? And we really need to hear from you. So, Warren Kelly, thank you for being here. And if nothing else, I wanted to maybe have a shout out to many of our listeners who are listening this hour, primarily in Texas, although I guess we're on about 4 or 5 stations, which I just found out a minute ago. But most of our listeners tend to be Texas. And that's why we really many times have had people like Candy Noble in this week, Van Taylor, we've had Angela Paxton, and many other individuals, because what's happening in Texas is important. But give us an update. I think some people have been listening all week, and they kind of wonder, how are we doing today?
We are not doing bad. It's been a good week so far. We're very thankful for each and every one of you that have given. We know it's, as our theme is, it's uncertain times, and it's difficult times for some people, and we recognize some people are not able to give, and we don't want to make anybody feel guilty, but we know that some of you are in a position where you can help us, and we do need to hear from you. We've heard from a number of people, but there are still a lot more we need to hear from.
You know, I saw this in the paper, and this kind of makes sense to me, and that is because of COVID, some people actually haven't been spending as much money for the last, few months, and they actually have a little bit more disposable income. So, if you're thinking about tithing on that or giving some of that away, we would be raising our hands.
It's a good point. A lot of people don't have the commute they used to have, especially in Dallas. That's a lot of money spent.
I didn't buy any clothes for a few months.
Didn't buy as many clothes, not going out to eat as much, and those kind of things. So there's sometimes a little extra in the bank, and if you can help us, that would be greatly appreciated.
And again, we might just mention that, again, people don't give to get, but we have certainly been making available this flash drive. And I thought I'd call on you for just a minute, because it's you and Ivy that have worked to put all of the material in here. I think I counted up 140 different items. Some of those are full radio program interviews that we've done. Some are viewpoints, commentaries. Many of them are articles by Penna Dexter as well as by me and Dr. Merrill Matthews and others. And so this is available along with, of course, the Outlook magazine we send to people that would like to give at least $1 a day, $30 a month. The other one that I also mention is, of course, we have these booklets, which we make available not only for this flash drive and the Outlook, but these booklets are available for those who give $50 a month. This is the one on loneliness, a conversation we had this week with Max Lucado, because that's his latest book on that regard. So those are helpful. And again, people can give a one-time gift. That is certainly.
Absolutely.
But I know that your life is a lot better when we get monthly gifts, because I notice the bills come in monthly.
Bills do come every month.
And if the donations come in monthly, we can match them up, right?
That's very true. And I want to just take a moment to say that, when you give, your gift changes lives. It impacts lives. I was thinking about it as I was getting ready to come in here. Everyone at this table today has had their life impacted before they were part of the program. And it's made a difference in our lives, and that it has changed the way that we're impacting the culture. So the gifts that you give change lives, and those people then go on to impact the culture in so many different ways. So your gifts really do make a difference for our culture.
Yes. I am so grateful that Penna is here, and I know she used to listen to the program before she was on, and she was here to do women's issues, and after a few weeks we realized everything's a women's issue, right?
I think we realized that like the second day I was here. But I will say that you find out either a whole issue that you never heard about before in the mainstream media, or you learn about the nuances. And I think today the media is just so untrustworthy on so many issues that you need point of view, because you need to be able to understand it. And sometimes if you're a Christian, and especially if you're a little bit politically aware, people are going to be asking you a lot of questions right now because of what's going on across the country and because of an election coming up. So you, in turn, we impact folks like you, but then you, in turn, can impact others. So we're like a tool to equip you. And I think, that's why your dollar has a great impact when you give it to Point of View.
Again, the number is 800-347-5151. Certainly, we're going to be talking with Kelly Shackelford. Just saw him a minute ago, so he's going to be coming in to join with us. But I thought just for a minute, we might, Warren, talk about the fact that this is an opportunity during this election season to really educate you. And on this flash drive, one of the things that you suggested we do, and so there's a video of me actually going through the entire election, because we have a presidential election. We have 33 U.S. Senate elections and then 2 additional ones that are special. So 35 Senate elections, 435 elections to the House of Representatives, 13 governor's races, and 43 of the 50 states are also electing state representatives. And so these are important elections. But Penna, as we work our way down, we're talking about the mayor's race, and we're talking about city council race. And just the other day, we heard news, and we want Kelly to talk about that the San Antonio City Council that said, Chick-fil-A, we don't want you to be at the airport. They had their hands slapped, and so all of a sudden people started paying attention to who the city council members are. And I would dare say before the pandemic, probably hardly anybody in the state of Texas or any people listening in other parts of the country could tell you who their county judge is. I bet they figured out who their county judge is now.
This time in history is a time when our mayors and our city council members, especially if you're in a city, a big city, are so important to our lives. They affect our lives more than the president does.
So again, that's one of the reasons why we want to make that available, just to help you think through the election. And Warren, just give us a preview, because as we finish off this week of Truth Team 2020, we already have, as you can see here, a link which takes you to the iVoter guide. But we have in the past provided all sorts of information so that people can know when to register to vote. By the way, that's October 5th for everybody in the state of Texas. And then how to begin to educate themselves, and then where to go and vote. And that material is going to show up there as well. So you're not just supporting the radio program, all the articles that we have there, the videos, and all the information we're providing.
And I know a lot of you are watching online as well. We have people around the country. We have only a handful of stations during this hour, but a lot of you are watching online or listening online. And so you see the materials there. And those of you that are watching online know that Kerby just went through that long list of all the elections and who's going to be elected or what, with no notes off the top of his head. I mean, all these things, it's amazing what he pulls out of the top of his head. But that's why so many people are tuning in. I mean, more people than ever are tuning into Point of View right now, because it's so hard to find good sources of reliable information. And it's hard to know what's true and what's not. And you can trust what Kerby says. You can trust what you're going to hear from Point of View. And we cover such a wide range of topics that if there's something you need to know, if we're not covering it today, it's definitely on the website.
Yes. So again, one more time, I just want to encourage you to make that phone call. Maybe you just can say, look, I can only give you a one-time gift. Well, that would be great, because at least it allows us to be able to communicate to you and send some emails and maybe even the Outlook magazine. But I'm hoping some of you can join us at the monthly level, either $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year or more. Some people might say, can I just write you a check for $500 and get the flash drive? Yes, you can. Some people say, look, can I just send you a check for $1,000 and get the booklet and the flash drive and all that? Sure. So you can do a one-time gift. But again, monthly support is very helpful. 800-347-5151. And of course, the website is pointofview.net. And Penna, I might just mention our first article, Where Are the Police? That's one. Kelly Shackelford is going to talk about the election wars in just a minute, because that was his. We have one on Google is evil. We'll wait till the national hour to get into that one, and that's from Rachel, who was actually in studio with us a while back. So these are just the resources that you are supporting when you support Point of View.
That's absolutely right. And when we learn things, we are able to take control of our lives and have, sometimes you feel like everybody else is controlling your life, especially right now. Well, the way to take control and the way to have an influence is to know what the issues are and know how to act to get things going in the right direction. That's what we're all about.
Just as we take a break here, let me just one more time encourage you to make that phone call, 800-347-5151. Love to get some calls right now, because oftentimes it gets real busy when we go on to the national hour, because then we have hundreds of radio stations. Right now, if you would like to get some TLC and some personal attention, that is what you will certainly get, because we have people ready to answer the phones right now, and we really do want to hear from some of you. during this noon hour. And whether you're in the state of Texas or not, as you've pointed out, Warren, there are a number of people that listen in, even though we're talking with Candy Noble, Angela Paxton. Of course, when we talk with Van Taylor, we are talking about some things that are national, but when we sometimes talk about some of these local races, and we have Jeff Leach or Matt Shaheen or a variety of others, it's still really interesting. By the way, I mentioned Matt Shaheen. Do you know that he won last time by 0.5%? So anybody out there that thinks it's unimportant to vote, they have not been in some of these campaigns where it was just by a whisker. So again, first step, make sure that you are registered to vote. That needs to happen between now and October 5th. Penn and I are from California. You can actually do it 2 weeks later, all the way to October 19th in California. That's California. But everywhere else is October 5th. And most importantly, right now, we need to hear from you. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
As protesters in cities across America call for abolishing or defunding police, we wonder, who are these people? If Black lives truly matter, why defund the protection that helps minority-owned shop owners and businesses to operate in these cities? Charles Blaine heads up 2 nonprofits, Urban Reform, which seeks to offer solutions that will revive American cities, and Urban Reform Institute, its associated think tank. He points out that the movement to defund police has a crucial flaw. The policy that it seeks would harm the minority communities whom the protesters claim to care about. Moreover, he writes in City Journal, those communities don't even agree with it. He cites a recent Gallup poll, which finds that a large majority, 81% of Black Americans, want to see police presence in their neighborhoods preserved at current levels or increased. Black Americans also respond that their exposure to local police is slightly higher than the national average. 32% say they see the police very often in their neighborhoods, yet 61% are okay with that level, and 20% want more police protection. Police budgets are being cut significantly in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Austin, Seattle, Minneapolis, and Portland. Houston, Chicago, and Newark are maintaining, even increasing spending on law enforcement. Charles Blaine says there's a glaring differentiator between these cities. Those with Black mayors or many Black council members have opposed demands to cut their police budget. Riots, looting, and the destruction of property are ruining lives and livelihoods in many of our cities. Blacks own and work in some of these businesses. Ask them if they want the protection of law enforcement. It's often white hipsters from affluent neighborhoods who say they hate police and want them abolished. Radical Black Lives Matter protesters and rioters from outside the neighborhoods they are destroying don't care about the devastation if it advances their revolutionary agenda. As lawlessness increases, law-abiding people know we need police. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View Truth Team on changing truth in uncertain times.
It would be tragic if Point of View did not exist, because not many programs are targeting areas where we need to learn how to think, where we need to learn how to respond, where we need to learn what our options are for active involvement, even how we can share truth with other people. And because Point of View is relevant, dealing with relevant topics, with real people, presenting real answers, it's right where people are. and it's meeting a very real need. This is a wonderful opportunity you have to literally help the ministry be the most effective that it can be through your gifts, through your financial support. I highly recommend it.
Again, our good friend June Hunt talking about the need to support Point of View, and I hope that you will consider doing so. Penna Dexter with me. Kelly Shackelford just arrived in a minute. We'll give him a chance to eat some of his lunch because he started the day very early in order to fly in here from California. But Penna, just a minute ago, some of the people listening online might have heard your commentary, which was actually one from last week, in which you point out that the assumption has been that, well, the African-American community, they don't want police in their community. The reality is just the opposite. They really do. And as we talked about this first article, where you got council members saying that residents are asking, where are the police in Minneapolis? Guess what? And more to the point, a latest Rasmussen poll actually ask individuals who are voters, these would be the individuals that plan to vote in November, if they've seen a violent protest in their community, and then what their reaction is. And as you might gather, 65% in one case, 63% another, depending on how you ask the question, actually strongly approve of the president if indeed they've actually seen a riot in their community. So it kind of gets back to something we've talked about with Kelly Shackelford and you, and that is the fact that this issue of safety and security is becoming a big issue in this campaign.
Yeah, it didn't used to be an issue because we just assumed that the police would be there when we needed them. And all of a sudden we can't assume that. And this was precipitated by, really, in a sense, a very false narrative that took place after the George Floyd incident, and turned into something that spread across the country, this whole move to defund police. Now you've got Minneapolis, where all this started, coming back, and the city council members are getting complaints because the police aren't doing their job, and they're wondering, they're even wondering, even though they're the ones that voted to defund the police, they're wondering, where are the police? Why aren't they responding? Well, what's happened is some have retired early. They've taken their retirement rather than stay. Some have just quit. Others are just, as you described earlier, they're practicing what we're now calling the Minneapolis effect, where they are just for small crimes or different automobile violations, they're just not even stopping people for those. So the whole atmosphere is getting more lawless. And this is not just in Minneapolis, but it's very interesting that the city where this all started is now already just a couple of months after it was passed to defund the police, wondering, where are the police?
Well, again, 65% say that these violent protests are important to their vote for the presidential election. And then the 63% of the voters who actually said they now strongly approve of the president. And we've seen some remarkable differences. And the other day I used the contrast between Portland, Oregon and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. In Portland, Oregon, you've had the mayor and you've even had the governor go, whatever. But in Lancaster, they had a number of riots because of this one individual with a knife actually heads towards the police, and they had to shoot him. And he's not black, he's a person of color, so he's really Hispanic. But then when it came time for the judge, for 9 of the 10 that were arrested, he put $1 million bail on them, and for the 10th person, a $100,000 bail. And so when there was another protest Monday night, it was all very, very quiet. Kelly Shackelford is here, and he thinks he's ready to join us. Kelly, that gets us back to the issue of deterrence. If you know that you're going to be sitting in jail and you're violent in your protest, it really kind of causes you to rethink what you're going to do towards the police.
It does. And some of this goes back to, not only those incidents that we've seen, but it goes back to even before that. There has been a specific attempt to get these type of people out of prison as soon as they go into prison. George Soros gave a lot of money to these local DA races all around the country so that because, that's one, you can't prosecute people if you don't have a district attorney who's not going to prosecute people. And they were, and he put these people in there to sort of go for these no bail, let them out. And so these people commit these crimes, like rioting and violence, they let them right out again, and they do it again. And you think, well, gosh, everybody's against this. But I don't know, how many of the listeners saw this, but Newt Gingrich was on Fox News recently.
I was wondering if you're going to go, and Harris Faulkner.
Yes, and he's on Outnumbered, and there's a number of women on that show, and he brings up that this connection, that this is part of what's going on here, is George Soros funded these races to put DAs who would not prosecute, and they said, whoa, we don't need to bring George in. And they shut it down.
Wow.
They would not allow a discussion of George Soros's name.
Did not say George Soros.
And that's Fox News.
Fox News.
That's not CNN or something else. So this has been going on a little while. I mean, this whole effort, and I think many of us, point of view listeners, they're like, why would anybody be for lawlessness? But this is not something that just happened. There are people who want this to occur. And it's been going on for a while, and now we're seeing the fruit of these efforts that they've been engaging in.
Penn, I was just thinking, I just heard the name George Soros, and we don't edit out George Soros on Point of View.
No, we don't.
Just the opposite. And so when that happened on Fox News, I thought, whoa, I have never seen that before. It's like, well, don't bring him into it. Well, no, that's exactly who funded this, and that's how that happened. And so, again, sometimes you have to go back and say the people in that community don't want this, but if you don't have the right people as your mayor, your district attorney, or a variety of other individuals prosecuting these, then you're going to have those people out on the streets again.
You are. And, you mentioned my commentary from last week where we talked about people's businesses. Well, black people very often want the police. I mean, amazingly enough, when you do the polls, they want the police because it's their businesses that are being destroyed often. Mm-hmm. And, if you watch, I just watched some of the rioting, it's mostly white people that are doing the really bad destruction. So that this is people, a lot of times it's people being brought in, it's the Antifa, the Black Lives Matter, and they're getting funding for all their equipment and their what they're wearing and all the things that they're using to destroy with. They're getting funding from somewhere. So that when you bring up that name George Soros, that's one of him and all the other affiliated organizations. I believe that some of that funding is coming from there. And, some of these people can be seen from city to city. They're not always just staying in one place. So, wow, I don't know what it is. The tentacles of this man are so deep and wide that they can reach into a lot of places that doesn't want to rock the boat with him.
Let's take a break, but this would be a perfect time to call. Again, Unchanging Truth in Uncertain Times, Truth Team 2020. And we will start our national hour in just a minute. I know Kelly Shackelford's going to have some things to say about some of these religious liberty cases, which you need to know about. We also have some questions about the election wars, a video that we encourage you to watch, Google is Evil. I think it will be eye-opening for you. And a little bit later, of course, we'll be talking with Foster Fries about his piece on America's uncivil wars. Give us a call, 800-347-5151. We'll be back right after this.
It is absolutely stunning what we see coming out of Washington, D.C. these days. Not just the push to remove or rename historic monuments, but revelations about official corruption in some of the most important and powerful places. Who will hold these people accountable? The major media? I think we know the answer to that. Point of View Radio is here to bring you the truth when no one else will, to give you a sober but hopeful look at what's happening and ideas about how you can make a difference. Today is the final day of our push to get a few more members on our Truth Team, those who support real news as we head toward the close of what's been, for many of us, a very difficult year. Don't let fake news go unopposed. Today is the day. We need to hear from you. Join the Truth Team now by visiting pointofview.net/team or call 1-800-347-5151. Unchanging truth in uncertain times. Point of View Radio. Pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Thank you. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of view, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, friends and society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining us. It is the weekend edition, and as you might have imagined, we have Penna Dexter and Kelly Shackelford in studio with us today. A lot of arguments that we're going to be making today, and a lot of articles that you can read. Where are the police? Election wars. As a matter of fact, a video that we want you to see a little bit later that will summarize, that has the provocative title, Google is Evil. And Foster Fries will be with us later on as we talk about his piece on America's uncivil wars, the real challenge of worldviews between secularism and Christianity. And Penna Dexter, we're going to cover many of those issues, but we're privileged to have Kelly Shackelford with us because he just flew in today from California.
You know, I think people that listen to us or just anybody that's paying attention knows we're in a pivotal time right now. We are at actually a point where our whole system could be overthrown and changed if we don't pull back a little bit and maintain our freedoms. And of course, the very first one is religious freedom. And I mean, I think, Kelly, you guys have pulled out all the stops, and you're being very creative in the ways that you are spreading the word about how important this is. And when you see churches prevented from meeting and all the things that we've seen throughout COVID, it's disturbing, but you're not sitting back and, I mean, you are doing the legal work that you need to do, but there's even more. And you've just been in California, that's one of the states where I think religious freedom is being curtailed more than a lot of other places. You've been out there. What have you seen?
Well, I mean, it's disturbing what's going on, and they know. I mean, you know, it's interesting how these things combine, right? What is the tragedy of the week? It's the two police officers in Los Angeles that were shot in the head. Yeah. And you wonder, you think that has anything to do with the fact that churches aren't allowed to open? You know, there is a connection to all this. You know, when the church can't be the church, evil does foment, and a lot of these people could be reached. And this ultimately, that's what this is. I think every Christian knows this, but ultimately, all these things are a battle between good and evil. I mean, that's what we're really seeing. Look at the riots. Look at the horrible things people are doing. And on the other side, you have the church that's just trying to minister to people, being told they can't open, but the Home Depot can open, and the marijuana dispensary can open. And I mean, there's so many ridiculous things going on. California, we have clients in California right now, Christian schools. And the law across California with these counties is, if you can have a daycare with 14 children and 2 adults. And I just talked to a pastor yesterday who did that all summer. They have a huge church, huge ministry, and they had daycare for people. Well, that's great. But if they teach, starting now that they're in school year, if they teach those people, it's illegal.
So if they have a little Christian school or preschool
That's right.
or something,
and
they can't have that.
And they have 14 children and 2 adults, illegal. So you know, I'm being sarcastic, so I'm sorry if people don't like sarcasm, but it's like, yeah, that's because there's this right to daycare in the Constitution.
Right.
You know, no, there's not a right to daycare, but there is a right to Christian education. It's religious freedom. So they're totally throwing these things upside down, but that's one of like a lot of examples. And so what we did is we've got our truck. We rented a truck and did a wraparound with all the visuals. And our marketing team and Stuart Shepard, I know a lot of people know Stuart does all our videos and everything. They're going to all these places where, the protest rallies, which are worship services, the churches that are under siege, really. They're going throughout California and getting interviews with all these people. And in a few weeks, that's going to all be made available. So you might as well go into the middle of where the battle is on religious freedom and show people, here's what's going on. Here's what these people are saying is going on. Here's the visual of thousands and thousands of people at the Capitol praying.
There are actually lots of Christians in California.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some of our greatest churches are in California.
Big ones.
Right? I mean, David Jeremiah's church is out there. Greg Lowry's church, John MacArthur. I mean, we go on and on. So it's the center of the battle. So anyway, we're definitely trying to get the word out, and people can be watching for that at First Liberty.
One of the reasons we cover these kinds of issues, because we're in the midst of Truth Team 2020, Unchanging Truth in Uncertain Times. Brad Fisk in studio with us as well, and we're down to the last day of our Truth Team, and we are challenging our listeners, if they have been listening up until now and have not given, we do have a phone number for them, 800-347-5151. They can also, of course, go to the website, pointofview.net, if they want to hear more of the kinds of things we'll be talking about these next 2 hours.
That's right. This perhaps is the most critical time in our culture that we may experience coming up. And we at Point of View want to be ready with answers, with the truth, the unvarnished truth, and tell all sides of the story. And we cannot do that unless we have financial help to make it happen. You can do that right now by giving us a call with your very best gift at 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. Or you can go on our website at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
Point of View Truth Team.
Point of View is a part of my daily life, and I know of no other radio program that helps its listeners to develop, articulate, and then defend a biblical worldview as successfully as yours does. For those reasons, I consider it an honor to be able to support Point of View financially, and I would encourage all of your listeners, both young and old, to prayerfully consider doing the same.
I just turned your program on, and I want to just let you know I was working in an abortion clinic when abortion first became legal, and I thought I was helping women. And the Lord showed me in a very powerful way, as he removed the veil from me, what exactly I'd been involved in. And I am proof of forgiveness. And I want to just let you know how much I appreciate just getting the truth out.
I really appreciate your program. I don't get to listen to it every day because I have to work, but it's a really a blessing to me and to all of us.
You know, my husband and I take so many extra precautions to guard our children, and it is a huge effort on the part of Christian parents to do that. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
I just appreciate all you guys do. I mean, I learned so much, and it's amazing what you teach that I say to other people, and they look at me like, where did you hear that? So I appreciate you guys. So thank you for all you do.
Point of View Truth Team.
As you're supporting this ministry, of course, you're supporting the conversation we're having right now, and Kelly's going to share some incredible things, Penna, in just a minute, that he's been dealing with as well. Of course, you receive all the material that we've made available, but Brad, if nothing else, because of the opportunity here, maybe when we come back from the break, we can talk about the different giving levels, but we have a pretty significant challenge in front of us today, don't we?
We do indeed. We have a goal that we believe God gave us, and it would make the biggest week possible, but that's what we need to have happen, is for those funds to come in. And $1 a day for $30 a month, $360 for the year is a great entry-level gift. 800-347-5151.
We'll come back and talk a little bit more about religious liberty, maybe even some comments about this Middle East peace deal and Netflix and all sorts of other issues. All that coming up right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Charles Mizrahi was on my radio program recently to talk about his article, Prosperity and Generosity, the Biblical Roots of Capitalism. Although we talk about the Bible and capitalism, this interview was a bit different because he is Jewish and used Old Testament passages to promote the idea of free enterprise. He wrote his article because he was so disturbed by politicians and young people bemoaning our economic system. Instead, they were calling for more government programs in a march towards socialism. He argued that history has not provided an example of more government programs and bailouts creating wealth for its citizens or resulting in more freedom. He reminds us that often wealth and prosperity were signs of blessing from God. Deuteronomy 8:18 says, "Remember that it is the Lord your God who gives you the power to get wealth, in fulfillment of the covenant that he has made on oath with your fathers, as is still the case." He also reminds us that wealth is not to be hoarded or to be used for self-gratification. God calls for us to be generous with the resources God has placed in our hands. He also points to passages that call for us to be generous to the poor. We read in Deuteronomy 15:11, "There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore I command you to be open-handed towards your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land." You know, God intended that we use our wealth and prosperity to provide for others in need. He describes the guidance that was given to the Israelites in order to help those who couldn't help themselves. That would be the resident alien, the widow, and the orphan. We need to hear more messages like this. He calls for us to work hard, invest, and help our neighbors based on biblical principles. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Racism, go to viewpoints.info/racism. That's viewpoints.info/racism. Point of View Truth Team, unchanging truth in uncertain times.
Hey, greetings, everyone. This is Lieutenant Colonel retired Alan West, former member of the 112th Congress. I just want to take a few moments to tell you why it's so important that you support Kerby and what he's doing here with Point of View Ministries and all the great people they have here on this team. This is truly an intersection of the culture. It is truly a place where you can have that open discussion about politics, your faith, and all the things that are affecting our country with the current issues, but it is always from a biblical perspective. And I think that's what makes Point of View Ministries, Point of View Radio, and what Kerby brings in his analysis and his assessment so very important. So please continue to support Point of View Ministries, Point of View Radio. What a great ministry. What a great man. What a great team that you have here at Point of View Ministries and Point of View Radio. Make sure that you support them.
Colonel Alan West, and if nothing else, I want to hear from some of you in the military. Last week, we even shared one of these religious liberty successes in the Navy, and I know Kelly will probably get into that in just a minute. But, Brad, we're in the midst of an Unchanging Truth, Uncertain Times Truth Team 2020, and we need to have a few people make some phone calls because I'm looking at people staring at the table, not at the phone.
Yeah,
and it's time, since we have so many people ready to answer the phone, for the phones to ring.
It is. We do this twice a year, and we're listener-supported radio. That's so important to put your arms around that. Listener-supported. And that means we can't do what we do without your help. And we would love to suggest an entry-level gift of $1 a day. That's $30 a month, $360 for the year. And we've got some gifts for you when you give at that level. But that's joining the Truth Team. That's saying, yes, I'm going to stand with you. A gift of any amount, of course, is welcomed. And you know what? I really believe there's two people during this break that could give $1,000. I really believe it's not. There's people who have the means and able to do it. There's others who are out of work. Hey, can we pray for you? Let us know how to pray. But you don't need to give. The pressure's off. 800-347-5151. Please prayerfully continue, pray and obey at what God would have you do. 800-347-5151. You can also give online at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
In studio with us, Kelly Shackelford, Penna Dexter. And Penna, you know, sometimes Kelly comes in with these stories and we roll our eyes saying, that isn't even possible. But I know this is one that you've been looking at, and I thought maybe the two of you could chat about that for a moment.
Well, a lot of things happened during COVID that were pretty shocking to a lot of our sensibilities. But this one, when it was a press release actually from First Liberty that came across my desk, and you know the Jewish high holy days like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, families normally get together in homes. This is a way. It's really a religious sort of community that happens, and a lot of homes, people are sharing meals. A lot of times it's just your extended family, and even extended families meeting together for dinner has been frowned upon by authorities in L.A. County. And they're having now, First Liberty is actually having to get involved here. Kelly, you need to explain this to us. To me, it's shocking to me that you wouldn't even be able to get together with your own family to celebrate one of your sacred holidays.
Yeah, it's obviously, I think people have seen the ridiculousness of some of these orders. And of course, this is where you have John MacArthur in the middle of a huge battle. And a number of other churches, to be honest, are in the middle of this too. They're being fined, they're being threatened. But this, we just couldn't even believe when we saw. We have a synagogue, a Jewish synagogue out there that we've actually had 5 different lawsuits against. They've been harassed in different ways before COVID. And they've had 10 emergency injunctions filed against them that the judges have. We've won every one of these. And now L.A. County has decided that they're going to single out Jewish people of the Jewish faith. And as the high holy days come, they're going to put in their COVID rules that their families can't get together for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and have those in their homes. So this is pretty outrageous. We sent a letter. People I know they can even read the letter and look at this. We have it at firstliberty.org. I don't know if it'll probably be connected to Point of View.
Sure.
If it's not, they'll get it up there, but you can go to firstliberty.org. And we sent a letter to L.A. County basically saying this, you can't do this. Now, we can sue you or you can do the right thing, so why don't you decide? But it's an example of how outrageous some of these, the ultimate problem with all of this stuff is that our system was never meant for some official to create law in his basement. That's not how we do things in this country. And so right now, I think everybody is they're realizing that this is a bad way to do it, that the legislative process is much better than some local official, whether it's a mayor or a governor, thinking they can just create law on their own and then, tell you can't have a religious meeting in your home. Don't worry about the Jews. They've just been doing this for hundreds and thousands of years. But that's okay. The mayor's got a better idea or the county official has a better idea now. And so, you'll just have to, stand down. Well, no, not really. Not. We have a constitution and the First Amendment protects religious freedom.
Are they saying if you don't live with them, you can't have dinner with them in your home?
Right. You can't, don't come together.
You can't bring grandma over.
That's right. You can't have these traditional, they go back, millennial. Mm-hmm. I mean, this has been around for a long time. We're talking about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which are coming up. And anyway, the rabbis have spoken out very strongly, and we've written a letter to the county, and we'll see what they do.
Brad, let me just come to our listeners and say, did you ever expect this? I mean, I guess if you read my booklet on anti-Semitism and saw that most of the significant hate crimes have to do with Jewish people, or even the one on constitutional interpretation, we've been talking about this for some time. But if people listening right now are outraged, which they should be, then there is an action item for them right now, isn't there?
There is, and we're asking you to simply become a part of the Truth Team. A gift of any amount would be so welcomed right now at 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. We are listener-supported Christian radio on day in and day out coming to you. Would you please help us?
Point of View Truth Team.
I just want to commend you guys on your program. I love listening to you.
I want to say, first of all, that I really enjoyed the Millennial Roundtable, and I love the program altogether. I think Kerby is great, and I really appreciate all that y'all do, and the truth that y'all put out.
I think you guys and gals are more right on about the assessment of this country right now than anything I've heard. You know, I go home and I tell my wife, you've got to hear what they're talking about on the show.
Point of View is actually a lifeline for me, and I'm actually a third-generation Point of View listener. I homeschool my girls, and I don't think I could do what I do without Point of View on a daily basis. Without ministries like Point of View, we really don't have much hope for the future of our children, our grandchildren. They just really help on a daily basis protect the freedoms that we enjoy today. I can't see a better way to invest in our future than to support Point of View.
Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it. Not only that, I want to encourage everybody listening to donate, because without our donations, I know that y'all won't be able to stay on the air, and it's just, I don't know where we get this kind of information if it wasn't from y'all.
Point of View Truth Team.
You know, that one caller was talking about where you get that information. It isn't just the couple of hours that we're on radio every day, because the Viewpoints commentary is Penna Dexter's on protecting senior votes, and we'll be hearing that a little bit later. And of course, you'll be able to read that. We have the iVoter Guide. We have about a half a dozen different articles. We have some videos, and of course, we have the links to all these great ministries, including First Liberty. And so, when you support Point of View, you're not just supporting the radio program. Right. You're supporting really all the aspects of what we provide for our listeners.
We have a plethora of resources just for you to make truthful decisions. It's Truth Team Week. 800-347-5151. Call now.
You know, I do, I kind of want to reiterate the idea that we have this website. It's actually a great tool. Number one, you can get in touch with the groups that we have as guests, and sometimes something piques your interest. So many have gone to First Liberty and learned about Kelly and all that they're doing. And so that's a great tool. Also, you know, we try to bring backup material so you can hand it out or, you know, help people understand some of these issues. So as Kerby said, you know, it used to be we were just radio. Now we're a lot more.
Well, again, we just encourage you as we go to a break, because I know what happens. We have Kelly here with all these stories. Nobody wants to call. So during a break, this is a perfect opportunity. You don't want to miss Penna. You don't want to miss Kelly. So this is a perfect time to give us a call. 800-347-5151. I see some people just waiting for the phone to ring.
7 people at $1 a day in the next 5 minutes. Come on, you guys. Let's get to the phones.
800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
It is absolutely stunning what we see coming out of Washington, D.C. these days. Not just the push to remove or rename historic monuments, but revelations about official corruption in some of the most important and powerful places. Who will hold these people accountable? The major media? I think we know the answer to that. Point of View Radio is here to bring you the truth when no one else will, to give you a sober but hopeful look at what's happening and ideas about how you can make a difference. Today is the final day of our push to get a few more members on our Truth Team, those who support real news as we head toward the close of what's been, for many of us, a very difficult year. Don't let fake news go unopposed. Today is the day. We need to hear from you. Join the Truth Team now by visiting pointofview.net/team or call 1-800-347-5151. Unchanging truth in uncertain times. Point of View Radio. pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Thank you. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Truth Team 2020, we're down to the last hour and a half, so I thought it would be good for just a minute before we get back into some of the other things we've been talking about to bring in Warren Kelly, president of Point of View. And as a matter of fact, you may have received an email from him that went out yesterday that said, did you see Kirby's earlier email? So it was a very good piece.
It was a good email. I had to send that out.
So we did send that out, but give us an update here. How are we doing as we are now down to the last about 90 minutes?
Yeah, as we started started off the week, we've been doing pretty well, but for some reason, things have really slowed down today. People are not responding, and so we just wanted to step in and encourage you. If you are, some of you wait to that last minute to help push us over the top. Well, now's the time to help push us over the top, because we do have a big mountain still to climb today, and we need your help.
Yes. So again, that's kind of where we are. And I'm looking at some individuals that are waiting for the phone to ring. So let's make the phones ring. Right?
Yes, definitely. I was listening for the phones as I walked down the hall, and I'm not hearing ringing. So please take a moment right now and let us hear from you.
So, Brad, that's one of the things that we are doing, and that is challenging people right now that if they waited to the last day, and I do know some of my listeners, they procrastinate to the last, they want to put us over the top. We need you to call right now to put us over the top.
This is perhaps the most strategic time we have been in decades, possibly in a century. Things are crazy. I mean, we're talking in the studio here about different things going on, and we're hearing about rights being trampled, the Constitution being ignored. We are building a war chest where we can stand up and make sure you get the information you need to have, but we cannot do it without your help. Here's the phone number, and would 8 of you call and fill all the lines up right now? 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. You can also give online at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. We're listener supported. We are dependent on you.
Kelly, one of the things I've said before is I support your organization. I would encourage people to give to First Liberty. Yesterday, we even encouraged people to give to Gary Bauer. But at the same time, at the moment, we're focusing on Point of View. And I know you've been on the board. You've supported this organization. Why so?
Well, really, there's a multitude of reasons, right? I mean, I think back when I heard Marlon Maddox. When I was in law school, I turned on the radio station and heard this guy, and it was like, oh my gosh, I love this. There's actually somebody bringing biblical worldview to the current issues and battles of our day. And, it was really, there was nothing like that, right? And now, did that affect my being where I am today? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that kind of put in my mind, hey, you can use whatever, your gifts are to actually connect the biblical worldview to the issues of your day. So for me, it's very personal in that I think it had an impact on me and what I did, but I think it's doing that. Jeremy Dice would talk about how he who works for us at First Liberty, he talks about how his mom, when she was in the van, would have it on and they would be listening. And now he's doing radio interviews all over the country. So maybe your kids are in the car with you, right? Or how many kids? But that's kind of long term. The short term, I would mention, is we have never been in a time that we're in right now where there's literally chaos. There's rioting. I think everybody knows we're in the middle of a really dangerous time. There's like sort of a real good versus evil battle going on in our country. And there's never, and at the same time that's going on, our media is disappearing as being just the basic journalism of fairness. I've seen some polling recently that says the number one issue of concern, and this is all Americans, is fake news. Because they can't get any information anymore. They don't know what's true. And so Point of View has never been more important, because there are things you hear at Point of View you're not going to hear anywhere else, and they're going to bring the truth from a biblical viewpoint, and there's just nothing like that. So I can't think, when we talk about the truth team, that's never been more powerful than right now. People need the truth. They don't know what's going on in the middle of all this chaos. So I can't encourage people more to be a part of the truth team, not only for themselves and what they're getting, but because they're gonna shoot this out to lots of other people who are going to get the truth as well.
800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151. Waiting for your phone call right now. And, of course, you can also go to the website, pointofview.net.
Well, I'll just go back and tell my story a little bit, because I was a conservative and a Christian and a mom, homeschooling, and I would get involved in political campaigns and try to get good people elected. And also I was involved with Concerned Women for America, and we would talk about the issues. So I one day was just home working on something and had the radio on, and there was Marlon talking about a law that was going to hamstring homeschoolers, force you to have certain credentials to even homeschool your own children. And Marlon Maddox and Kerby and Point of View were instrumental in getting hundreds and thousands of calls into Congress so that law, that restriction, did not pass on homeschoolers. And when I heard that, I'd heard Point of View here and there a little bit, but I saw, and then the follow-up, that what was accomplished there for Christians across the country. I just became more of a listener, and then eventually I got to be a guest, invited by Kerby, and then Marlon hired me, and it was the rest was history there. But it's just like a force that whatever the times are, whatever the challenges we're facing, and they're the worst now that they've been in all that time. Point of View steps up with the truth and helps people understand what the truth is and what they can do to advance it. And I think right now we are a country, yes, it has its flaws. We need to fix the flaws, but this is not a time to overthrow the whole government and our Constitution, which is what a lot of people are trying to do right now, including the mainstream media.
I'd love to hear from some of you that have been influenced by Point of View. Sometimes when they call, they give us that story, and that's a great story as well. And Brad, one of the things you've said is there's some individuals that probably could give $1,000 or more.
I know there is.
And again, we make these booklets available for people that actually can give $50 a month, but they can get these also if they give $1,000 or $5,000. And so there may be some individuals out there that really could give at the higher levels, and we will send all that material to you just as well. But we're looking for not only those individuals, but people that can support us on a monthly basis, $1 a day, $30 a month or more. And also, of course, there are probably a few people that say, well, at least I can send you one gift, and we would certainly value every single gift that
every
we receive.
gift counts, whether big, small, doesn't matter. In the eyes of God, it's equal. It really is. But we would really ask you to prayerfully consider, we're going to be talking about our future here too in the next couple of months. There is some crazy stuff going on, and from what I'm reading and hearing, especially from Point of View, is it could get a lot worse. So 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. It's a 2 to 3 minute call. You don't have to have the money in hand to make the pledge. We simply ask you to get a hold of us. Pointofview.net is another place to give. Pointofview.net.
Let me just mention, then when we come back from the break, let's talk about the election. First of all, those of you that listen online will hear Penna Dexter's commentary. Kelly Shackelford, you sent this to me, and I had not seen the video. Google is evil. Now, Rachel, I think, does a very good job. She's been in the studio with us, but people, I think, are completely unaware of the amount of influence that these social media groups have. Big tech censorship and the way in which Silicon Valley and Team Biden are colluding to rig the election. So again, you're going to hear some things here in the next half an hour or so, which remind you of why you need to be listening to Point of View. And Kelly, you said just a minute ago, there is kind of this unbelievable limitation on what can be said on some of these other networks. And as you well know, you've been around for a long time, as Penna has. Everything's on the table here. We talk about things that you don't even hear on Fox News.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that people would never hear if they didn't listen to Point of View. And I think, and it's, you think, well, they're saying there's some conspiracy. Well, I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. This is a Christian radio, and that's not what you see on TV. I mean, their goal is not Christian TV. It's many other goals. And so there are often things that you're going to hear here you're not going to hear anywhere else. I mean, how many people heard, I mean, if you got the news feed maybe, but I bet most people listening, until we talked about what's happening in L.A. County, telling these Jewish families that they cannot celebrate Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in their own homes, how many people have heard that story, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Only
I just got a text message that we're testifying next week in Congress on churches and COVID and the restrictions and the Constitution. That's a pretty big deal, right? And I mean, you wouldn't hear that if you weren't on here. So we're going to talk about the tech stuff. You don't hear that very often anywhere. Maybe a few places, maybe a Tucker Carlson or something, but we're going to go much more in depth here. So there's lots of things you'll never hear and never get the information on if they don't listen to Point of View.
So please give us a call right now. At the break is a perfect time to call. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Give us a call. Of course, you can always join with us at the website, pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
Here's good advice for everyone to remember as we enter election season. Never trust a stranger with your ballot. This comes from Ken Blackwell, the former mayor of Cincinnati. It's particularly timely because this November, universal vote by mail will take place in more than the few states where it's already practiced. This differs from absentee voting, in which a voter requests a ballot to mail back by Election Day. Universal vote by mail means ballots are sent to addresses without being requested. Countless ballots will land at addresses where residents have moved or passed away. Of the risks posed by such a system, the worst distortions can occur in institutional settings, like nursing homes and assisted living facilities. The average stay for a resident of senior housing is just 24 months. In an article for the American Spectator, Ken Blackwell points out that it would be easy for dishonest staff or party-affiliated vote harvesters to fill out and return ballots of former residents with their own preferred candidate marked. He says there are many documented cases of such fraud. Ballot harvesters collect ballots and deliver them to polling stations or mail them in. Even where ballot harvesting is legal, the opportunities for its abuse are obvious. The American Constitutional Rights Union has launched a needed initiative, protectelderlyvotes.org. The organization has sent letters to nursing home directors in 7 key states and another 1,000 facilities across the country, explaining the need to ensure that the votes of their residents should not be suppressed or stolen. These directors will receive follow-up phone calls. This is urgent. Currently, the ACRU is acting on a tip that the League of Women Voters and the ACLU are attempting to ballot harvest at assisted living facilities across the state of Florida. To protect your loved ones and the facilities they live in, there's a voter fraud hotline at 877-730-ACRU. Check out protectelderlyvotes.org. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View Truth Team on changing truth in uncertain times.
Hi, everybody. Max Lucado here. I want to join the loud chorus of applause and appreciation for Point of View as well as Christian Radio. The unique voice of this powerful ministry over the airwaves is absolutely essential in this day and age. And so I stand with those of you who support and encourage this powerful ministry. I thank Kerby and for the faithful friend that he's been to me all these many years. May God bless this ministry. Let's stay behind it.
Max Lucado with us on Wednesday. His new book is on loneliness. Of course, we have this booklet on that. And again, I think that is a very significant issue. But Penna Dexter, anybody listening online just heard your piece on protecting senior votes. And I love this. Ken Blackwell said, never trust a stranger with your ballot. And this whole idea of ballot harvesting, which was controversial in North Carolina and apparently is legal in California. What about this?
It's legal some places, but it's never a good idea. We should be try to stay in control of our ballot as much as possible. And I think the area where ballot harvesting is that someone would collect your ballot and other people's ballots, perhaps help you fill it out. Maybe you wouldn't even fill it out. They'd do it for you. They'd get them together. They'd take them to the polling place. And, it appeals to some elderly people who can't get out much. And I think this is where they really need to be aware. And that's why I did this commentary, because there is a group out there that's calling the nursing homes, assisted living places, senior living all over the country and telling them, would you please help your residents to protect their ballots? There's fraud. Sometimes it's just the ballots end up mailed and piled up somewhere in the nursing home, and they never get to the people who are supposed to vote, or the votes happen and they never get out of the nursing home. So you've got vulnerable people there, but so you need honest brokers to help them if they need help. And so her organization is the American Constitutional Rights Union. They have a project called Protect Elderly Votes. You can go to protectelderlyvotes.org and find out how to help folks that are in your life, in your family, that are elderly, and the places that they live to be protected from fraud. And it's really important right now, I think, especially in a time when this mail voting, which is, it's not absentee voting necessarily, it's just mailing the ballots out to everyone, which means ballots go to places where those people didn't, moved away 2 years ago. And this is particularly true in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Elderly people move out at an average of every 24 months. So this is huge with regard to the election. I mean, both parties could take advantage of it, but it just seems like the left loves to take advantage of these opportunities to commit fraud. So it makes it important in the next election.
When you support Point of View, you're supporting these materials that are there. Penna Dexter's commentary, for example. 800-347-5151 is your way to participate. But one of the other things we've talked about is privacy and surveillance, or even social media. And Kelly, while we're talking about the election, there are some people that are convinced that big tech is trying to swing the election. But even greater is this piece, which you have actually got our attention about, a video which we encourage everybody to watch. Google is evil. That's pretty strong. But after you hear this, you realize we're losing our privacy and we're being surveilled all the time.
Yeah, Google is a real problem. There are 50 state attorneys general, it's pretty much all of them, that are now investigating Google for antitrust violations. It's bigger than, I think, 92% of the countries in the world. It has that much power, and that kind of power is dangerous in and of itself. But and people tend to think it's American. It's not. I mean, they're bored. It's international. It's not American, and I think people know the kind of things they're doing with censorship and how they're manipulating search engines and manipulating they're literally now processes for what sequence they will show you videos to psychologically manipulate you. But I think what a lot of people don't know, and they can look in this video and the information is, Google is now, there's over 200 separate devices where they are surveilling you. Things that don't say Google at all on them, that you don't even know are surveilling you. Things like thermostats in your home. And people are like, really? Yes. Because they don't have to tell you. And they're taking your medical records. Do you know that Google probably has your medical records? If they haven't gotten it, they're asking for it right now, and they've gotten it without your permission. So, I mean, this is a lot of data people don't realize, but this is a dangerous power to have in anyone's hands. And then add to that what's happening with the elections on all these social media, it is very disturbing. I mean, when you have companies that can change the election results for the president of the United States and all the down ballot races, that's way too much power. And so something has to be done. So people need to really be aware of what's going on. There was an ad just attempted this week by the American Principles Project on Facebook, $4 million ad for the races, and all it was about, hey, who you vote for could impact what happens with women's sports, because this transgender movement would allow male bodies to be participating in female sports, which destroys really the ability of females to actually really compete. Well, that has been banned. Why?
Gee.
Because they fact-checked it and it was wrong? No, they fact-checked it and everything was correct. But they said there's a new category now. It's called context. So if you don't explain the other side's position well enough, then now it's not context. So they pulled the ads. So now you have to argue against your own ad.
In your ad.
Yeah.
In your ad.
Yeah.
which
So
is nuts.
the censorship and
That's
the
not
manipulation and what they're doing in these elections, this is very dangerous.
Let me just mention that that's why we do Point of View. As a matter of fact, I've been saying that I probably need to redo my anti-Semitism piece, my one on social media and the one on privacy, just in light of everything we've just talked about this hour. Yeah. And so if you value hearing the kind of news, information, commentary, and biblical perspective, Brad, that's why we encourage people to call 800-347-5151.
You know, we can't overstate the importance and the critical nature of what's going on. You have to be blind, deaf, and dumb to not see what's going on around you. And there's lots of concerns about the election coming up, of potential fraud and what's going to happen if so-and-so wins, or what happens if the other so-and-so wins, and all of this. Ladies and gentlemen, you need Point of View. Whether you know it or not, you need Point of View to be here and to be available, especially if these critical things start happening. And we're building a war chest with your help. Today, we have set an audacious goal, and we are about 25% there. Thank you for that. But there's still 75% to go. 800-347-5151. Join the Truth Team. That's $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 for the year, and you'll be an integral part of what's going on here. But a gift of any amount is welcome. Even a $1,000 gift or two would be really helpful. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Let me just mention we're going to the top of the hour, and that is the best time to call because then you won't miss anything. A little bit later, we'll have Foster Freeze with us, a very good piece on America's uncivil war. That's really, in a sense, the worldview of secularism versus Christianity is really on the ballot. I think you'll appreciate that. And if some of you are saying Google is evil, that just seems too extreme, I would encourage you to go to the website. It's about a 2.5-minute video that was produced by another entity that's there. And again, you're probably hearing about it first of all here on Point of View. 50 million Americans already we have their medical records on Google.
That's scary.
Does that scare you?
No permission.
And no permission, and really just an incredible amount of market share, trying to deplatform the Federalist. All sorts of things that you'll learn about there. So let's go to a break, but when we do so, I really want you to call now. If you waited to the last moment, give us a call, 800-347-5151. We'll be back right after this.
It is absolutely stunning what we see coming out of Washington, D.C. these days. Not just the push to remove or rename historic monuments, but revelations about official corruption in some of the most important and powerful places. Who will hold these people accountable? The major media? I think we know the answer to that. Point of View Radio is here to bring you the truth when no one else will, to give you a sober but hopeful look at what's happening and ideas about how you can make a difference. Today is the final day of our push to get a few more members on our Truth Team, those who support real news as we head toward the close of what's been, for many of us, a very difficult year. Don't let fake news go unopposed. Today is the day. We need to hear from you. Join the Truth Team now by visiting pointofview.net/team or call 1-800-347-5151. Unchanging truth in uncertain times. Point of View Radio. Pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Thank you. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Down to the last hour of our Truth Team Week 2020. Of course, it also is a weekend edition with Penna Dexter, Kelly Shackelford, Brad Fisk in studio with me as well. And we'll be talking in just a few minutes with Foster Fries. We have his piece on America's uncivil war, secularists versus believers. Also going to talk about, is there a possibility of what are called the election wars? That is our second article there as well. And in a minute, we'll give you kind of an update. Kelly already has an update on what we were talking about in terms of these Jewish celebrations. But before we do so, we thought we might hear from some of our listeners.
Point of View Truth Team.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I'm 23 years old, and I used to be very involved in politics on the way radical far left, which, as you were saying, has views that are mainstream among Democrats today. When I got the Holy Ghost, the Lord opened my eyes to many truths, mainly the general moral decline of the country, which I used to advocate for before God changed my heart and mind. So, and when Christ found me, I started to focus on God's kingdom, but I still have major concerns about what happens in this country politically. And I just want to say thank you to your radio program, because it's really refreshing and appreciated. And thank you to God as well.
The thing that Point of View does is that they have looked at culture, they analyze it, and then they put it through the lens of the Christian perspective. And so that in and of itself is so rare. It is very biblical to do what you're doing.
Thank you to Point of View, opening my eyes over the last several years to so many different people that I follow now that I used to never follow. So thank you for opening up the truth.
I want to just tell you, I love your show. I listen every day. It's fantastic, the stuff that y'all bring out that other news shows and other people don't.
Point of View Truth Team.
You heard that 23-year-old, and it reminds me of yesterday when we had Phil Robertson here of Duck Dynasty. He's talking about baptizing some of these individuals. And this one woman he baptized, but before he did so, she said, I want to say something. He thought, what is this going to be? She says, well, actually, I'm from New York. I'm a very liberal individual, but I found Jesus Christ, and now I've changed my mind. And so you're hearing more and more of those kinds of stories. And if nothing else, that's one other aspect of Point of View. Matter of fact, on our flash drive, we have whole sections on education, evangelism, apologetics, and others, so you can reach out to your friends. And we're down to the last hour. Brad Fisk, 800-347-5151. We are getting some phone calls, but we need to hear from some more listeners.
We're right at 25% of the total goal achieved, and so we're not there yet, and we've got an hour to get it done. We're simply asking you something special, something different than before, because this country is in trouble. And it could be big trouble or not so big trouble. I don't know. But I do know this. We need Point of View. Won't you please donate as much as you possibly can? How about $1 a day, $30 a month? 800-347-5151. We'll put the flash drive in the package as well as a thank you gift.
Of course.
800 800-347-5151 or on the web at pointofview.net, pointofview.net.
Let me just mention Kelly Shackelford, one of the articles we posted, we called it Election Wars. And there's a lot of people that are concerned that if indeed this election goes into overtime, and it's certainly possible, we saw what happened in the election of 2000, we could have violence in the streets and we could have conflict in the courts. What you know so far?
Well, I mean, it's been public, so it's not like a big secret. There are a number of groups. I forget the name they've given for the combination of groups, but there are a number of, I don't know what you would call them, progressive, pro-Democrat groups, because they're working in tandem, that are specifically planning to engage in, civil unrest, riots, and these types of things. If the election, on the day of the election. And they're not only going to do that, then there's a team of 800 attorneys on the Democratic side that are planning to file all kinds of lawsuits. So, I mean, they've announced that they're planning to do this. And, again, this is before there's any issues. They're still planning to do this. So you add that to the fact that normally the way we decide elections is you go into the booth and you vote. And this time there's it depends on who you believe, anywhere from 50 million to 80 million ballots that are supposedly being put in the mail. So, I mean, add that to riots and unrest and all this, and you can see, I mean, I think it's really sad. This type of thing should lose you votes, okay? If one side is planning this, they should almost be disqualified from leading the country because this is not what America is about. This is people who want to win at all costs. These are people who lack moral restraint or any common sense, and they're not seeking the good of the country. Well, they would say they are because they think the good of the country comes by destroying it and remaking it in some other mold. But these articles I thought have been very disturbing. And again, I think I've heard a lot of people say this. I bet a lot of listeners feel the same way. A lot of people are praying that the election will be so overwhelming on the night of the election that all of this stuff will not happen because it won't work. So I encourage people to really be in prayer.
There are so many states who have been talking about mail-in, all-mail voting, and, it just seems like they haven't prepared yet, or they haven't ever done this before yet, which even just putting fraud aside, just the ability to get everybody to get their ballots in soon enough or, meet deadlines, fill out the ballot correctly, sign the ballot correctly, all of that. So I think, as you said, Kelly, it should make people want to go into the polls and vote. That would be the gold standard. You could be more sure of your vote getting counted if you do that. And it's interesting because I think, Kerby, you sent this out to us this week, town hall piece by Bronson Stocking, and it's titled "Disregard Their Previous Hysteria. Democrats Now Say In-Person Voting is Safe." They were fueling this fear about going to the polls as if it's any less safe than going to the grocery store or whatever else we're doing, probably more safe. But now I think some of them are starting to see that, wow, we're not ready for accurate mail-in voting, or we're not really ready for this. We're not even sure that we're going to be getting an advantage from this. So now they're saying, well, maybe it's okay now.
Yeah, that's because they saw that more than 500,000 ballots were rejected during the primaries.
Yeah.
A lot of those were Democratic primaries.
That's right.
If that doesn't cause people to pick up the phone, Brad, I don't know what is.
I don't know, 800-347-5151. We are not giving up here. There's no hopelessness. If you sense any of that, not there. We are in this for biblical reasons. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. A gift of any amount, monthly or single gift, will be welcome. $1,000, $10 a month, $1 a day to join the Truth Team. 800-347-5151. 5151 or pointofview.net. We need to hear from you.
Aren't you glad that Penna Dexter and Kelly Shackelford are on your team? And I want you to join the team there as well. That's called the Truth Team. And again, that number, 800-347-5151. Of course, the website is pointofview.net. I do see a lot of people on the phones, but I'm sure there's still room for you. And we'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Charles Mizrahi was on my radio program recently to talk about his article, Prosperity and Generosity, the Biblical Roots of Capitalism. Although we talk about the Bible and capitalism, this interview was a bit different because he is Jewish and used Old Testament passages to promote the idea of free enterprise. He wrote his article because he was so disturbed by politicians and young people bemoaning our economic system. Instead, they were calling for more government programs in a march towards socialism. He argued that history has not provided an example of more government programs and bailouts creating wealth for its citizens or resulting in more freedom. He reminds us that often wealth and prosperity were signs of blessing from God. Deuteronomy 8:18 says, "Remember that it is the Lord your God who gives you the power to get wealth, in fulfillment of the covenant that he has made on oath with your fathers, as is still the case." He also reminds us that wealth is not to be hoarded or to be used for self-gratification. God calls for us to be generous with the resources God has placed in our hands. He also points to passages that call for us to be generous to the poor. We read in Deuteronomy 15:11, "There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore I command you to be open-handed towards your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land." You know, God intended that we use our wealth and prosperity to provide for others in need. He describes the guidance that was given to the Israelites in order to help those who couldn't help themselves. That would be the resident alien, the widow, and the orphan. We need to hear more messages like this. He calls for us to work hard, invest, and help our neighbors based on biblical principles. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Racism, go to viewpoints.info/racism. That's viewpoints.info/racism. Point of View Truth Team, unchanging truth in uncertain times.
We all know how rare it is to get the sort of cutting-edge biblical analysis of current events and cultural issues that you get every single day at Point of View. But Point of View can't do it without the support of listeners. I encourage you to, if you benefit from Point of View, show your appreciation by praying for the ministry and seriously consider financially supporting Point of View. The church needs what it provides.
Again, John Stone Street speaking about the importance of supporting Point of View. And in just a minute, we're going to go to our good friend Foster Fries. As a matter of fact, we posted a while back his piece on America's uncivil war, secularists versus believers, but we've posted it again for you. You know that our action item over the last couple of weeks have been one bill, one subject. But we're in the midst of Truth Team 2020 down to the last 45 minutes, Brad Fisk. And certainly we need kind of an update on where we are and what we need to do before the top of the hour.
Well, we started at a $38,000 need just for today to be where we have to be to be able to do what we need to do. I'm proud to say we're about $27,000 left to go of that 38,000. And so there's some big numbers there. And so we're going to need some people at $1,000, maybe a $5,000 gift. Whatever you can give, $5. That's the same in God's eyes. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. You can also give your gift at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. You don't have to have the money in hand right now. You're making a pledge, and we're asking you to please consider helping us financially. 800-347-5151.
Weekend edition, that's when we always have Penna Dexter and Kelly Shackelford in studio, but we also have by phone Foster Fries of Fries Associates, an individual that graduated from the University of Wisconsin, which has been a state we've been watching, now lives in Wyoming. Of course, we have many times had a chance to hear from him, and of course, we also have a link to Foster's Outriders. And Foster Fries, always great to have you on the program.
Kerby, this is one of the highlights of my year to hear all the neat things you're doing. I was remarked by what you just were talking about in terms of kind of helping the poor. I just launched a brand new program. The checks are just going out now. It's called a Galatians 6:2 Fund. Now, a lot of churches have what they call deacons funds, this is sort of like it. But here's what we can do. You go to church and you say, go out in the community, and it doesn't have to be members of your church. Find people who would kind of be blessed by a $2,000 check. And then they give me a number, 8 people, but they can't give me the name, and I can't give them a name. So I put $2,000 times 8, $16,000 into the Galatians 6:2 Fund, and then they distribute it to those people who just lost their job, or the car just blew up, or a kid got sick. And so it's a way of kind of blessing people out of they won't see it coming. It'll be a nice surprise and a witness to the fun of Christian giving.
I just love all your creativity. That's just so good. Let's, if we can, for just a minute, talk about this election. And, of course, I want Penna and Kelly to join in as well. The other day when we were talking with George Barna, he says, in some respects, worldview is on the ballot. And, in a sense, the piece that you wrote on the fact that we really have a conflict that isn't necessarily just tension between Republicans, Democrats, progressives, conservatives. It's really more profound, you say. It's a conflict between secularists and Christians. Tell us more, if you might.
Well, if you look at Bernie Sanders on TV, he said, it's highly unlikely that there's any pro-life Democrats. Well, I'm sure there are some. But then he, I'm going to have to deal with my cough a little bit. I'm sorry about that. Hang on a little bit. And then if you look at, a pastor told me, of the 22 presidential candidates the Democrats put up, none of them had a biblical worldview. And if you look at Christians are told from when they're knee high, Jesus loves you, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. So their self-esteem comes from that relationship with God, that he loves us. So where does the secularists get their sense of self-esteem? It's through the works of their own hands, where they basically have to achieve something. Sometimes it's a bigger house. Sometimes it's a bigger car. Sometimes it's a university presidency or something of accomplishments, prestige, materialism, and the big one is power. And they will do so much to gain power because that's from which their self-esteem comes. If they don't have power, they don't feel like they're worthy or they have much importance. And you can find people carrying bedpans in nursing homes who have good self-esteem because they know that's something that needs to be done, and God honors their efforts. So this dichotomy has really hit us hard because look what the George Floyd thing spawned. The guy dies under his knees. What does a secularist do? He says, "I'm going to go to Atlanta, and I'm going to go to Seattle, and I'm going to shoot a policeman." is that's what's called a Christian worldview. Whereas the Christian's response to that tragedy is we have to get better. And then when you see all the rioting and the looting, 15, 17-year-old kids breaking into a Target store and stealing pants, if that kid had been to a different private Christian school and had been to Sunday school the following Sunday, highly unlikely he'd be there stealing that stuff. But he came up in a secular worldview where people are yelling, reparations, reparations. Well, reparations, that means we're going to take money from people who have never owned slaves and give it to people who've never been slaves. The Target Corporation hardly was involved in the slave trade. So we have a whole generation of people who've been raised with secularism and don't know God has a purpose for their life, and that gives them a self-esteem. So that's why we're struggling so badly. You look at the contrast of no Democratic candidates, a biblical worldview, and then by contrast, look at the people that Trump surrounds himself. And I'm not talking Christians he surrounds himself. I want people who purposely have acknowledged the importance of Jesus in the directions of their lives and leading them. Betsy DeVos, Ben Carson, Rick Santorum, Sarah Sanders Huckabee, or Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the guy, the governor of Rick Perry, and you can go on and as Secretary of State
Mike Pompeo.
Mike Pompeo. So you can find about 15 or 20 committed people who acknowledge in their speeches how important Jesus is in the direction of your life. And that's different than saying, I'm a Christian. You know, a lot of people question Biden, who says, I'm a Christian, but yet supports abortions. But it just is a contrast when you look at the way the two different sides approach problems. And this is a huge problem. You're not going to.
That's your civil war. Yeah, it really is. It's that civil war. We need to take a break. And just before we do so, Brad, we need to remind people that as we're listening to Foster Freeze, we certainly need to have some individuals give us a call at 800-347-5151.
And our goal is $38,000 this hour. We are at $26,000 to go, so we're making progress slowly but surely. Thank you for your gifts and for standing with us. It is Truth Team Week, 800-347-5151. We are listener supported, 800-347-5151.
I tell you, Foster, this is Kelly Shackelford. One of the things that shows exactly what you're talking about is look at the battle in these states with these secularist governors shutting down churches. There's the real, I think, the visual of this, and we just we've got clients right now, for instance, in California, Christian schools who were allowed to have daycares with 14 children and 2 adults, but they can't teach them school because then it becomes school, and school is against the orders. So you can have the same number, 14 kids and 2 adults. You can't teach them Christian education, but you can have them in a daycare. Boy, if that's not the difference between the secular and the Christian worldview, I can't think of anything that is.
Let's take a break, though, because we do need to continue. Now, first of all, challenging you to support this ministry. And, of course, we want to also hear a little bit more about Foster Freeze. And for those of you that are not familiar, Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in the way you will fulfill the law of Christ. And so we'll be talking about that when we come back from the break. But if nothing else, this is a time to give us a call. 800-347-5151. Only half an hour left, and we have a mountain to climb. So help us out, 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
It is absolutely stunning what we see coming out of Washington, D.C. these days. Not just the push to remove or rename historic monuments, but revelations about official corruption in some of the most important and powerful places. Who will hold these people accountable? The major media? I think we know the answer to that. Point of View Radio is here to bring you the truth when no one else will, to give you a sober but hopeful look at what's happening and ideas about how you can make a difference. Today is the final day of our push to get a few more members on our Truth Team, those who support real news as we head toward the close of what's been, for many of us, a very difficult year. Don't let fake news go unopposed. Today is the day. We need to hear from you. Join the Truth Team now by visiting pointofview.net/team or call 1-800-347-5151. Unchanging truth in uncertain times. Point of View Radio. Pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Thank you. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Final half hour. Of course, it is our weekend edition, but it's also the last half hour of Truth Team 2020. Unchanging truth in uncertain times. And I would certainly commend you this piece by Foster Fries, America's Uncivil War, Secularists versus Believers, and how many times we've talked about civility, how many times we've talked about carrying others' burdens, and much, much more. So we'll get back to that in just a minute. Penna Dexter, Kelly Shackelford with us, Brad Fisk, and we're down to the last half hour. So if you are waiting to give, now you can put us over the top.
Great time to do. If you get a busy signal, go to pointofview.net if you can and give there. There's never a busy signal there.
It always is busy at the end. I wish we'd spread it out.
Well,
but
that's
anyway.
the way it is. Hey, we are a little over $25,000 to go, and we will be at our overall day goal today of $38,000. And you can contribute to that, your own gift, at 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. We are in a battle, and it's only going to get bigger. We need your help to be able to do what God has called us to do.
Penna?
Foster Fries is with us. Foster, this is Penna Dexter. Thank you so much for being with us. You said at the beginning of the interview that you always look forward to seeing the neat things that we're doing at Point of View. I feel that way about you. We love hearing about the neat things and the wonderful projects that you get involved in. You're creative and generous. And I do want to talk about this whole realignment that you've been discussing. And there's one thing that I'm seeing in the country right now when you have sort of the cancel culture. If you believe, usually it's in a moral and religious way about something, you get canceled and you get deprived of your voice. And then there's the other side of it that really takes a lot of boldness now to speak the truth, which is what we try to do. So I was interested when this week President Trump has started talking about education. And I think that's probably one of the only remedies for the problem that you outlined about the secular Christian culture. And that is he wants to now push patriotic education. What a concept. But through public education, he wants to deprive schools of support that are talking about this whole 1719 project that really basically portrays America as an evil nation. So much of our education, Foster, has been that the American nation and founding and everything else is evil. We're not perfect, but it's not a reason to overthrow the system, is it?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. But before we launch into the response to that, I want to challenge your listeners to get that last 25,000 in, as I will double every dollar they bring in. So they bring in 25, I'll send you a check for 50. So maybe that'll encourage them to. I know Kerby tells me all the time, you got all the money you need to move ahead with your program. But part of the problem is some of it is still in your listeners' pockets. So let's see.
Yeah. Hey, the pressure's on, ladies and gentlemen. Foster Fries has just offered to double your gift if we reach 25,000.
Every gift doubled.
It's really tripled.
Yeah.
It's really tripled. He's going to give double. So when you give $1, it's going to end up being $3.
800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Well, again, we've been talking about this idea of the realignment. And what about that, Foster? Because it does seem that has been changing. And also the president saying, let's talk about what's good about America. Let's not talk about the 1619 project and all the things that are bad about America. What's your thoughts?
Well, if you look at the contrast between the Christian worldview and a secular worldview, because they didn't like what happened with George Floyd. What is the response? It's violence, smashing windows, stealing. What's the Christian response? Funding these private schools, ACE Scholarships, which is a group I'm the chairman of the advisory board with my wife. We provide low-income scholarships, and the family puts in $1,500, $2,000, so the mom knows the kid's homework's going to be done. The graduation rate for that low-income group is like 94%, and they also graduated twice the rate in college that their low-income peers. So here's money. At a recent outing, I think ACE raised $12 million to put in these scholarship programs. So here's a clear-cut contrast. And the Christians have to step up to the plate and start funding these things, because these government-run schools, they don't teach the values of forgive 7 times 7, no, and all the you've been set free to serve, and all the different Christian values are missing. They've been knocked out of school and censored. And that's why this recent Espinoza decision is so important, because it got rid of the Blaine Amendment.
Yeah.
That public funds can now be spent for a private education, including Christian education. So the capacity for us to make a difference is there, but there's too many churches that have become hymn-singing country clubs or holy huddles. They get in a huddle, hold each other's hands, and they look into the middle and aren't reaching out to people that are hurting. I think this Galatians 6:2 fund could be an opportunity where there's people out in the community who get that $2,000 check from the church and say, gee, maybe I'll show up on Sunday and learn a little bit more about why you did that.
We go through troubled times like we have, where we see the violence in cities across the country. We've seen all the problems from COVID. It does cause sometimes a rethink. And, hopefully some of these institutions are purified, like the church. The church can learn some ways it can actually be of better benefit to the culture. And also, parents are seeing what their kids are and are not being taught in schools, and that the schools are really not serving them well. Perhaps we can have more of a choice in education where the money can follow the kid rather than go directly to schools that are teaching things we don't want them to learn.
Yeah, amen. That's such. In fact, if you look at the Florida race where DeSantis won the governorship by a narrow margin, he got 19% of the black women vote on the basis of the school choice.
Let me just mention, too, our action item is still up there on One Bill, One Subject. That's another topic that you have been taking on. So whether it's various philanthropic activities or whether it's various political activities, we just need to do a lot of things to streamline what is taking place, because in just a few days, we're going to have another challenge because we won't have a budget. They're supposed to have a budget by the end of September, 1st of October, and we won't. And I've had members of Congress on this program say, I've never voted on a budget yet. So we need to fix some things in Congress, don't we?
Well, did you notice the other day, Kirby, that Trump did One Bill, One Subject? This whole bill comes over for all these expenditures, and he carved out just the postal, right?
There you go.
Right?
Yeah, that's what we need to do.
So this will allow us also to connect the everyday voter to what's going on in Congress. If you have this bill with $3 trillion with 8-10 different topics in there, the congressman says, well, I voted for the CARE Act. The guy in the street has no clue.
Yes.
During the campaign for governor in Wyoming, I had an opportunity to go through a welding shop, and they took a picture afterwards of my white shirt, and all these grubby guys have been welding all day in their clothes. And I just fell in love with these guys, because who's speaking up for them? The politicians spend their money, the welders' money, like it's monopoly. Let's put $1 billion here and $2 billion here and whatever. And so I think if we can have like one bill, one subject, everybody, including those welders, know what they're voting on. And then if you move to $25 billion for the Kennedy Center, people can input right now. I fought for my cough, but they don't have the input because they can't see what's being voted on.
For sure. Just before we go, you put a match on the table. Let's give the basics so that everybody understands. And I think I understand it, but one more time, what's the challenge for us? Okay,
if $25,000 comes in from now until the end of the day, whenever you can get it in, I will send you a check for $50,000.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And thank you for being with us. And let's catch you next time when you're not dealing with a cough, because there are all sorts of other things we want to talk with you about. But thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Foster, for your generosity and your encouragement. God bless you.
Well, you got great important. thing. So keep it up and keep expanding.
Thank you.
Amen. Let's, if we can, mention the website is pointofview.net. The phone number is 800-347-5151. Can we raise $25,000 in one segment? I don't know if we can do
15 minutes.
Every dollar is doubled right now, up to $25,000.
Triple, basically, yeah.
And so we're asking you to give us a call at 800-347-5151. You can also go online at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. And we basically have till the end of the day, so let's see how quick we can get it done.
Okay, let's take a break. 800-347-5151. We have a lot to talk about. We'll do it right after this.
Here's good advice for everyone to remember as we enter election season. Never trust a stranger with your ballot. This comes from Ken Blackwell, the former mayor of Cincinnati. It's particularly timely because this November, universal vote by mail will take place in more than the few states where it's already practiced. This differs from absentee voting, in which a voter requests a ballot to mail back by Election Day. Universal vote by mail means ballots are sent to addresses without being requested. Countless ballots will land at addresses where residents have moved or passed away. Of the risks posed by such a system, the worst distortions can occur in institutional settings, like nursing homes and assisted living facilities. The average stay for a resident of senior housing is just 24 months. In an article for the American Spectator, Ken Blackwell points out that it would be easy for dishonest staff or party-affiliated vote harvesters to fill out and return ballots of former residents with their own preferred candidate marked. He says there are many documented cases of such fraud. Ballot harvesters collect ballots and deliver them to polling stations or mail them in. Even where ballot harvesting is legal, the opportunities for its abuse are obvious. The American Constitutional Rights Union has launched a needed initiative, protectelderlyvotes.org. The organization has sent letters to nursing home directors in 7 key states and another 1,000 facilities across the country, explaining the need to ensure that the votes of their residents should not be suppressed or stolen. These directors will receive follow-up phone calls. This is urgent. Currently, the ACRU is acting on a tip that the League of Women Voters and the ACLU are attempting to ballot harvest at assisted living facilities across the state of Florida. To protect your loved ones and the facilities they live in, there's a voter fraud hotline at 877-730-ACRU. Check out protectelderlyvotes.org. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View Truth Team on changing truth in uncertain times.
Thank you, Kerby, and for all that you do. And I just want to send a shout out to everyone that we should support you 100% because you are a voice to the world and definitely a voice to Christians. I have grown more by listening to you and the different people you bring on your program than I ever have. And a Christian that is informed can be very effective in a dark world.
So again, back for the last segment, and we have an issue here, and that is once Foster Freeze was on, and it is a triple your amount, because if we do raise that $25,000, he will write a check for $50,000. So That's kind of interesting because Kelly was doing the math and it all of a sudden hit me. Yes, if you join at $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year, that's tripled. So that's like giving $1,000 to this ministry. So that is pretty incredible.
So you're going to probably get a busy signal for a while, but just keep trying at 800-347-5151. Write it down, 800-347-5151. Better yet, if you could go to pointofview.net, that's pointofview.net. You can give your gift there. There is no waiting, and we don't jam the phones up. But please, don't hold back thinking that you're not going to get in. This is an incredible opportunity to triple match our money to get the job done.
Never had this before.
Never had this before. Please be as generous as you can. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. We're looking for $25,000. And we got her done.
It's kind of like the loaves and the fish, right? I mean, if you ever wanted to be a part of Jesus' miracle, right? You know, you give him one, and then he gives you all this. Well, this is what you can do now. You give one, you get three. So you give $1 a day, it ends up being $3 a day, which over a year it ends up being over $1,000. So if you ever wanted to actually be a part of watching your gift multiply 3 times over, this is that opportunity, really, just in the next 15 minutes.
Yep. As long as the
10 minutes.
Yep. As long as the phones are ringing,
That's right.
We're here.
Yep.
Point of View Truth Team.
I really appreciate what you guys do. I love the program, and it's so refreshing to have this type of ministry on the air. And you know, you pray that others would tune in and really get educated from a spiritual perspective about a biblical worldview. I mean, I really appreciate it.
You guys do an amazing job. You guys always are very encouraging, and no matter what, I just wanted to thank you guys.
I just wanted to commend you for the excellent guests that you've had on your program. I think all Americans need to hear these things, and I hear you say that only 1% of listeners support your program, and I just want to encourage people out there. They need to support your program because our country needs to hear these messages.
I just want to say that I love your show. I listen to it every day because I get off just in time enough to hear it, and just keep up the good work.
Just wanted to know how much I appreciate your program. I've been listening to it for several years, and thank you so much for the positions you take. Keep up the good work.
Point of View Truth Team.
Back once again, we only have about 5 minutes, but I just wanted to, if we can, come back to an issue. Kelly, you started the program by talking about what was happening in these Jewish gatherings, and you already have a victory. So we have only been on the air for 2 hours, and we already have a victory. Can you share that?
Yeah, Los Angeles County was had said that it was going to be against the law for the Jewish families to celebrate Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in their homes. In their own homes, right? And they have, I mean, this is a victory, but it's sad how, I mean, what they've said is we will not be sending police into the homes of the Jewish families.
Oh, well.
And that it won't, this, they are free to have their religious high holy day celebrations. But again, the idea that this even occurred in the first place is just outrageous. But the good news is, they are not going to do anything, and they will be able to celebrate the high holy days.
So we'll take that as a victory. And again, I just want to challenge you, if you would want to join in on a match. This is a triple match, which we've never talked about before. 800-347-5151.
First of all, let me just say that we've been kind of saying it the whole time, that this is a pivotal moment in our nation's history, and it's actually a time when the truth that you receive from Point of View is needed more than ever. I mean, that has never been more true, and I've been involved with Point of View for a long time, many, many years, and I've seen some pivotal moments, but this is really one for the survival of our country as we know it, for the survival of our way of life as we know it, for the survival of our liberties and freedoms. If you're thinking of giving a bigger gift than you've given, or making a pledge that was bigger than, or a larger pledge, or any size pledge, this is the moment for that. Yeah. With it being tripled by Foster Fries's generous offer. Actually, he promises, and he does this for us sometimes, and he always comes through with it. He's just so generous, and we need to not waste the opportunity. Also, if you've never given before, What a time to start.
Yes.
What a time to give, because it's going to be, as Kelly mentioned, it's going to be like offering a loaf and having it expanded. So we encourage you to do this. You will be part of the Truth Team. You will be part of the ministry of Point of View, which is so crucial at this time. So I just want to say, be a little patient if the phones are busy, or go online, and you can do it very quickly. Pointofview.net.
And, there's going to be some people I know that could do $1,000, maybe $5,000. We're going to need a few of those to get this done by the end of the day. And so every dollar you give is tripled. And that is so exciting. Never happened to Point of View in the 48-year history that we've been in existence. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. 5151. Every dollar tripled that you give right now, up to $25,000. You can also give at pointofview.net, pointofview.net. No busy signal there.
And it's also multiplied in other ways, because when you give, you think, oh yeah, Point of View's on for me to listen to. No, you're providing it to hundreds, thousands of other people.
Pay it forward.
Yeah, and this, think of the timing of this. We're under 50 days before the elections, when people are going to be looking for information. I don't understand these issues. I don't understand what's going on. What do you mean people are doing this? It's affecting voting and all. I mean, this is a key time. So you can give, multiply the information out, in probably one of the more key times in the history of the country.
That's for sure. Well, we're down to the last minute or so. And first of all, let's say the obvious, and that is, even though we go off the air right now, we'll still answer the phones.
As long as they're ringing.
It might take a while, because I got a feeling some people are going to want to certainly try to get through. I just noticed people putting the phone down and then picking it back up again, so it doesn't seem like that is abating anytime soon.
We're at $22,000 to go. That's what we have left to get accomplished.
Wow.
To get to the 25. So you know what? This is miracle territory. This is a time, Father God, please supply the needs of this ministry. In Jesus' name, amen.
Yes. We do have people even at our houses, because not everybody's here because of COVID, so they'll be able to answer the phones for some time. So I want you to recognize, if you get a busy signal and you forget and you think, oh, it's been an hour, maybe you can still call and somebody will answer the phone. So I want you to do that. But
put a note on your refrigerator.
That's for sure. First of all, I want to thank Kelly and Penna always for having you join us here. But Brad, it's always been a lot of fun to join with you.
It is an incredible privilege to be working with such a group of professionals.
It is always fun at the end to talk about how we've met our goal, but we don't know what that is. So that has never happened before, so we'll see where it goes. But again, I want you to understand that next week we have our course Millennial Roundtable. Then we'll be back talking about all these issues, and I hope that you will join us then. The website, of course, is pointofview.net. You can do that 24/7. And of course, the number which we'll still answer is 800-347-5151. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you back here Monday on Point of View.
It is absolutely stunning what we see coming out of Washington, D.C. these days. Not just the push to remove or rename historic monuments, but revelations about official corruption in some of the most important and powerful places. Who will hold these people accountable? The major media? I think we know the answer to that. Point of View Radio is here to bring you the truth when no one else will, to give you a sober but hopeful look at what's happening and ideas about how you can make a difference. Today is the final day of our push to get a few more members on our Truth Team, those who support real news as we head toward the close of what's been, for many of us, a very difficult year. Don't let fake news go unopposed. Today is the day. We need to hear from you. Join the Truth Team now by visiting pointofview.net/team or call 1-800-347-5151. Unchanging truth in uncertain times. Point of View Radio. pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Thank you. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.